It's natural for the bereaved whose loved ones were killed to feel intense hatred and want to kill the perpetrator. However, there was a case where the bereaved family of 3 victims told the murderer they wanted to apologize to him. Hiroshi Okumoto, the death row inmate, was initially sentenced to death as strongly desired by the victim's family. However, they later changed their stance, requesting a retrial and his rehabilitation instead. It was an unusual situation where after the death sentence, the bereaved family requested a reduced sentence. Why did their feelings change? He killed a man. What exactly drove him to commit such an act? The Miyazaki family triple murder case. On the night of March 1, 2010 in Miyazaki City, Miyazaki Prefecture, a man called 110 and reported that when he returned home, his wife and mother-in-law were dead. When the police rushed to the scene, they found Kumiko Okumoto, the man's wife, who was 24 at the time, and her mother, Takako Ikegami, who was 50, lying at home with blood flowing from their heads, already deceased. Furthermore, the husband who made the call, Hiroshi Okumoto, who was 22 at the time, said their eldest son was missing, and it was discovered that their 5-month-old baby boy was nowhere to be found. The police promptly started investigating, beginning with the first person who found the scene. Police questioned Okumoto about the situation in response to their inquiries. There were many ambiguous points in his answers, which led to suspicion being directed at him. On March 2nd, during questioning, Okumoto confessed to burying his eldest son's body at his workplace's material storage site. He said the body of his 5-month-old eldest son was found about 600 meters from their home. The body was found at the materials storage site of Okumoto's construction company workplace. Miyazaki Chicken arrested Okumoto for the murder and abandonment of his eldest son, and after that, his wife and mother-in-law as well. He confessed to the killings and was arrested again. The person who killed all 3 members of the family was none other than Hiroshi Okumoto, the husband of the household, who pretended to be the first to discover the crime and reported it. What could possibly drive a man to kill the 3 people he loved most, his own family, and why did this brutal criminal receive support from the victims' relatives? Why did the victims' relatives say they wanted an apology and even ask for a reduced sentence for him? The key person in this was his mother-in-law who lived with them. Now, here are the details of the case. Okumoto, the perpetrator, joined the Air Self-Defense Force after high school. He met his future wife while stationed in Miyazaki. He met Kumiko in March 2009, about a year before this case occurred, due to her circumstances. The two got married. Simultaneously, he resigned from the self-defense forces and transitioned to a civil engineering and construction company in Miyazaki City, leaving behind the stable income of his military career. His salary at the civil engineering and construction company was 180,000 yen per month. It seems that this amount made it difficult for him to think about the child that was about to be born and their daily life, so they ended up living together with his wife's mother, Takako Ikegami. Okumoto, who had a serious personality, was valued at his new company and trusted by the president, but his mother-in-law, who didn't think well of him quitting the self-defense forces, often blamed him for his low income. On top of that, living together with his mother-in-law, who had intense mood swings, meant that every day was a test of patience for him. His wife, Kumiko, also began to treat him more harshly after seeing her own mother's attitude. He increasingly felt out of place at home. As he began feeling this way, he would linger in his car after work instead of going home, returning around 10 or 11 post-meridium due to his job as a construction worker. He left for work around 4 anti-meridium every morning since they started living together on February 22, 2010, about a year later. He spent the day in his car, only returning home late at night. While in his car, he often killed time by emailing women he met on dating sites. He would do this frequently. Kumiko-san discovered this that day. Furious, she told him she would divorce him at any time. On February 23rd, the event that directly triggered the crime finally occurred. He came home late at night after an incident occurred. Miyazaki and his parents, including his stepmother, discussed their eldest son's first zeku while living together. The stepmother, enraged by their disagreement over where in Fukuoka to do it, hit his head repeatedly with both hands, saying, "Go back to the buraku. This is why people from the buraku. If you want a divorce, then get divorced. I'll ensure a substantial consolation payment from you. I've been patient and put up with everything so far." Hearing those words made something snap inside him. He wanted to escape his stepmother. February 25th. He often felt lonely because he couldn't get involved between his stepmother and his wife and child through parenting, and with chronic lack of sleep and stress, he came to the conclusion that the only way to escape from his stepmother was to kill all 3 of them, and he decided to go through with it. Around 5 a.m. on March 1st, He drowned his 5-month-old son in the bath at their Miyazaki city home, suffocating him to death. He then attacked his sleeping wife, stabbing her chest with a kitchen knife. When she woke up, he struck her head 5 times with a hammer, killing her. The noise woke up Iam. He also swung the hammer at his mother-in-law, who had stood up, and struck her down, killing her. After that, he went to work as usual and returned home after finishing his job. Around 9 p.m. that same day, he returned home from his workplace. He buried his eldest son's body at a storage yard about 600 meters away from his home, and then he pretended to discover his wife and mother-in-law's deaths first and reported it to the police, leading to the case being uncovered. The investigation resulted his wife and mother-in-law died from brain damage after being struck on the head with a hammer. It was said that their condition was something only seen in severe traffic accidents, indicating an intense outburst of rage. What drove this man into uncontrollable rage was, as we've mentioned before, related to the difficult personality of his mother-in-law who lived with them. Soon after they started living together, she began verbally abusing and scolding him. "You're not holding the child properly. You're young, so don't just lie around all the time." His mother-in-law complained about their lack of engagement ceremony or wedding. She often yelled at him publicly, saying she disliked him since he left the self-defense forces, and criticized the absence of proper marriage rituals. With his late nights and early mornings at work, he had no time to relax at home. Her attacks even extended to his own parents. She would say things like, "Your family never does anything for us," and even when his parents came all the way from Fukuoka to visit, she didn't want to let them into the house. Given this background, many believed that he was not the only one at fault in this case, but in the end, he was sentenced to death. At the trial in December 2010, the biggest point of contention was why, if he only wanted to escape from his mother-in-law, the main issue was why he also killed his wife and son. However, at this point, he was unable to sort out his complicated feelings toward his family, so when asked about his motive for the murders, he repeatedly answered, "I don't know." This attitude was seen as a lack of remorse. However, after the first trial, the defendant's brother-in-law, a member of the victim's family, appeared and claimed that the case was not entirely the defendant's fault. That's the person. At the time of the first trial, he was the one who strongly demanded the death penalty, but as the trial progressed, he began to think that maybe the mother was also partly responsible for this incident. The stepbrother knew his own mother's personality very well. After that, when he met with him, his death had already been confirmed. He submitted an appeal to the Supreme Court, requesting a retrial and asking that the original sentence be upheld. It is extremely rare for the victim's family to agree to the defendant's latest request, and in that statement, my brother-in-law stated the following: "Regarding the parts where my mother was at fault, I will take responsibility myself. I felt the urge to apologize to the defendant, Okumoto." In March 2017, the defense attorney had already been appointed in October 2014. I submit this written statement to the Miyazaki District Court as evidence for a retrial request regarding his death sentence. However, it concerns the sentencing in September of the same year. The submission was dismissed as it was not deemed a valid reason for retrial. His death sentence was finalized, and as of 2021, he is currently on death row. He is detained at the Fukuoka Detention Center, spending his days regretful and reflective. He has a patient, timid demeanor. Looking back on his childhood, his family at home says he never really went through a rebellious phase. However, it was simply that those around him didn't realize he was just hiding his true feelings and unable to speak his mind. He later said that when he was in elementary school, if there was something he couldn't stand, he would hit rocks with a stick as hard as he could. The psychological evaluation at the second trial revealed that he suppresses his impulses and can't express his true feelings. Since he can't release impulses gradually, he loses control when they accumulate, lacking the training to handle such situations. Some speculate if the outcome could have differed had he communicated before the incident. During the trial, the prosecutor and defense noted other potential resolutions, like divorce mediation. However, he said he had never argued before and didn't know what to do. He had always just endured things since his youth and before he realized it. He says he became unable to express his true feelings. In a state where he had lost control of himself, he kept hitting his wife and mother-in-law on the head with a hammer. He recalls memories from his elementary school days when he would hit stones with a stick whenever he couldn't hold back his feelings. My deepest condolences to the 3 people who died in this case. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.